How are you, everyone? Good? Excited? All right, please have a seat, everyone. We have some seats here at the front. If you're standing, please come forward. Okay. So, it's finally the day that we all have been waiting for almost a month. You have so many fans here, more than can even imagine, right? They're all following you on Instagram and TikTok.
Now you're really scaring me.
on both the Arabic and English.
That's even more scary now. Arabic is not great.
They prepared so many questions. Now, to give you some context, what was happening here. in5 are for in5, science, media, tech, and design. And we just concluded this morning, our best ever boot camp, and it was themed on fundraising. This was our flagship boot camp. Okay? So, congratulations to everyone who went through it. And we wanted to have this session to conclude that boot camp with a bang. Welcome into speakers. Okay. This is your chance. So you went through the fundraising bootcamp, you took all the notes, you heard all the theory, but we want to hear it practically. What do VCs actually look for, and what's their point of view? Okay, this is why today we have Noor with us from Global Ventures, and if you don't know, she was on Shark Tank Dubai very recently, right? And one of the favorite sharks. And we chose one of our very special startups. Rightfully, this is not a sponsored ad for him. Okay? We chose him for his experience in speaking in a British accent.
I like that.
Okay? So, I leave the floor for Neil and Noor now, and let's kickstart now.
Hi everyone, so I'm being used for my British accent, so it's fine, because I like Ahmed. So let's just start with a really quick intro for the 1% in here that doesn't know about Noor. Noor Sweid is the founder and managing partner of Global Ventures, an international venture capital firm based in the UAE. She was formerly the chief investment officer at the Dubai Future Foundation and managing partner at Lead Ventures. Noor significantly expanded her family business, DEPA, and led its $1 billion IPO on the LSE and Nasdaq Dubai. She also founded Zen Yoga, MENA's first and largest wellness chain, exiting successfully to private equity. Noor is recognized as among Forbes' world's top 50 women in tech and Arabian Business's 100 most powerful Arab women. Noor holds degrees in finance and economics from Boston College and an MBA from MIT Sloan. That's a long intro.
Well, thank you for not stating when I did the IPO, when I graduated college, and dating me, because sometimes those things seem like a really long time ago. But thank you for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And you've got 3 kids.
And I have 3 kids, yes.
So let's start with somewhere nice and simple. Can you just share a really brief journey overview from consulting to CEO to then VC?
Brief? I'll try it. I think every role in life is there to teach you something, right? And it's really difficult to imagine what the next role is from where you're sitting today. So as a consultant, if someone had told me I was going to family business next, I would have told them that's impossible. And yet there I was. And when you're in family business and someone tells you you're going to do a startup, again, that seems like a really far-fetched, especially a long time ago when it wasn't as cool as it is today to be an entrepreneur. And then to go into government and serve as a CIO. So I think every step in life is really the right step at the right time. But it's hard to imagine it from a different place. The secret is really to stay open-minded to what may present itself. So that when something does come along and you say, this was so not in my plans, no way, this makes no sense, to actually pause and say, what is the universe offering me here that maybe I hadn't thought about? And hey, this might be an interesting learning journey. And instead of no, ask yourself, why not? And really go in with the faith that the journey that you cannot imagine is probably a much more interesting one than the one that you could plan.
Love that. So let's just focus on global ventures for a second. And as I mentioned to you earlier, by chance, I was actually my first meeting this morning was with Saki, which happens to be one of your portfolio companies. 49 companies you've invested in?
63.
Oh, really? Wow. Maybe 64 with a startup in this room?
Maybe.
We have a pitch coming up later on, so we'll see how that goes. Back to the question. So, could you name a few successful startups and tell us what are they doing to stand out today, and what are the few things that they're doing right to grow that business?
Well, I want to avoid going down the philosophical path of what does successful mean and how does one define success. I'll start by sharing we've had successfully 5 exits from the portfolio. I won't talk about those startups, right? Because that's a measurement of success on our part. I like to think that the team was really good in selecting and working with those founders and choosing the right time to exit and return money to investors, which is our job at the end of the day. I like to think of success for these startups as achieving their own dreams and their own goals and reaching heights that they could have only dreamt about, not really thought about. If that makes any sense. So there's a few in there that when you sit with a founder, you kind of know that they've already surpassed what they thought was possible. And those are the ones that I would say that's real success, when you surpass what you actually thought was possible. You've overcome your own fears, you've overcome your own inhibitions, you've overcome your own impediments. And that's what success is. So for those startups that have achieved that, the ones that today are at about 50 million ARR, 20 million ARR, and 4 years ago were an idea, right? Or trying to get product market fit. For those startups, what I like to see and what I like to believe I see is really this passion in solving the problem. And not just in the solution that they're building, but in the problem that they're solving. So they're not as attached to, this is how I want to solve this. They're much more attached to, I really want to solve this and I don't care how. And that is what really takes the excellent founders and makes them incredible founders. They're able not to pivot their solution, but to grow their solution, to adjust their solution to solve the same problem they were first trying to solve. That's the fundamental crux of it. And the only way you can really do that, in my opinion, is if you are passionate and care about the problem you're solving so much that everything else is secondary.
And there's this concept in your when you talk on social media about going deeper on that, solving problems and then following trends, right? And depending on who you talk about, especially the word AI, is it a cringe-worthy term? Is it solving a problem, or is it just a trend people are jumping on? So
it's both.
Yeah, what goes in your mind when you see a startup pitch to you with AI in there?
Well, it's the same thing as when we saw startup pitches to us 5 years ago and there was blockchain in there. It's, yes, I agree this is a wonderful technology and I would be delighted if you were using it. Now, tell me how you're using it to solve the problem you want to solve. Right? So it's not really about, are you using AI or not? My bet is most companies in the next 2 years, if they're not already using AI, should be using AI, or they will likely cease to exist because their competitors are using AI, right, to solve that problem better. So the question of AI is, how have you leveraged this amazing technology to create a better solution for that same problem that you are so passionate about? In our portfolio now, over 60% of our portfolio considers themselves AI-led or AI-enabled. The other 40% are still using AI. They just don't use it as much as the 60% in the fundamental crux of their solution. So they were the first to say, wonderful technology, how do we embed this? Same as blockchain today. So we're going to look back and say AI is going to be in everything. It's going to be in every company, helping solve every problem the best way that we can.
Interesting. So your advice here is follow the problem, not the trend.
Yes, definitely.
And there's many problems, guys. Some buildings still don't have great Wi-Fi. Sorry, that's just a private joke. So just coming back to the questions. So what are three things that startups can do, and you use these terms specifically, is I know what I'm doing, I have revenues too, and now I'm a regional success story. What are three things, and you've probably got people in here, businesses in here, at each stage of that journey. If you were to talk to someone that's at this side, what are three things they can do to go from here? And actually, just say, Noor hasn't paid me to say this, but in my meeting with Sapi actually this morning, he talked really highly about the growth strategy session that your team and actual operators who have run successful billion-dollar businesses, those people running those sessions with them and actually helping them take them from 10 million ARR, etc., and upwards. So, claps and really, really happy to hear that. So give us a bit of an insight into that session. What are they specifically learning, and what are you telling them to do to go from here to there?
I wasn't in the session, to be honest, but generally the way that we think about how we work with founders, and if I were to run a growth session or a strategy session, and so I'm hoping that it's run the same way across the firm, it really focuses on what are your next steps. So if you ask me getting from here to here to here, it's not really helpful for me to talk to someone about how do you go from your Series A to your Series B if you're still trying to figure out your MVP. I think that's wonderful. Thank you for the knowledge. I can't do anything with it. Right? So you really have to meet people where they're at. And then once you meet people where they're at, and what is your next place that you want to be at in the next 6 to 12 months? And now, what is your plan for getting there? Right? Very simple. And now my favorite part is, and what are your two biggest challenges? Not one, but two. Because that always comes back to, can you see your own blind spots? Are you able to identify what they are? And then are you able to solve for them? Because if you're not, then you're only going to hit them that much harder, that much faster. It's going to take you that much longer to figure out where they are. And then you're going to run out of money before you get to that next place you're trying to get to. So where are you today? Where do you want to be next year or at your next fundraise? What's the path? And what are your two biggest challenges? And then I can step in as an investor and be like, great, I can help you with these two. Inadvertently, you will have another two and another two and another two, and that's perfectly fine. But sharing what you believe the biggest two are means you've taken the time to decipher your weaknesses, your areas of challenge, what you're worried about, what you're scared about, and ask for help.
And you talk about getting to positive EBITDA as quickly as possible. Something that's kind of the nature of this region with capital allocation, etc. To a business who wants to go from 0 to 1 being $1 billion, which is probably a large audience within the in5 tech space, B2B, and I know that's your focus. What are 2 or 3 things that you've seen across your portfolio? I would love for these guys to walk away and go, yeah, that's a great idea. Is there 2 or 3 things that come to mind where there's a pattern across your portfolio that it's actually working from a customer acquisition? Let's say that's the problem point of view. And I'm putting you on the spot here, I know.
No, there's more than 2 or 3. I'm trying to narrow it down.
Give us more.
So I think the most important one that I find consistently across the portfolio is the entrepreneurs that make it, especially that first $1 million mark. And EBITDA is not that important when you're younger. It's important as you grow because it prevents you from raising capital, when you don't want to. But when you're a young company and you're trying to get to that $1 million, the companies in our portfolio that have done that exceedingly well in a short period of time and just nailed it, without fail, that entrepreneur comes from the industry. And that's something that me as a VC, I can't help you with. If you don't come from the industry, I can't make it that you do come from the industry. You can find a co-founder that comes from the industry, and as long as they're committed to solving that same problem, you have alignment and you can build together. But if you do come from an industry and you care about a problem in that industry, then you have a much higher chance of building a successful company than if you don't come from an industry and you're just observing it from the outside. So that's what I can tell you is the most common denominator across our founders that have managed to scale, not just to 1 million, but then oops, next year they have 3 million, and then they have 10, and they're off to the races, right? And we're just like, great, how do we help? And we help, but we don't have to support as much as the founders that are still trying to figure it out 3 years later.
Makes sense. So let's just imagine, so you're in your office and you've had a busy schedule and it's 7 p.m. Now, for whatever reason, I'm just making this scenario up. You've only got 1 minute to review a pitch deck. Let's say the security has decided to close the office at 7:05, and you see a pitch deck from an in5 tech startup, and you've promised Sweid that you're going to look at it. So you've only got 1 minute. In that 1 minute, what are you looking for that captures your interest? What is it needs to tell you to go, team, let's look at this deeper?
I mean, the only thing that captures my information in less than a minute is a number. So if there is a number in there that piques my interest and is teaching me something I don't know, and that's quite easy because there's many industries in which I don't know many things, but if there's a number that is stated in a way that if I then go home to my kids and at dinner, I can say, hey, did you guys know that X% of whatever, or there are this many, and suddenly they're like, really? Why is that? Or how is that true? Or, what's going on there? Then that will make me really start kind of peeling that onion. I mean, like, okay, this is really intriguing. This is interesting. So most of my team know numbers mean everything to me. So you need to quantify it. You need the data behind it. It's the best way to pique interest. It's the best way to keep an audience, even if that audience is someone reading your deck, is to share the numbers. The numbers need to be on the first couple of slides. The numbers need to be part of the story. And right at the beginning of the story, that is the problem you're solving. Here is the number. It's not the market size. It could be a percentage. It could be a population. It could be anything. But numbers are harder for me personally to forget than anything else. So if I see a slide with a number and a very brief 1 sentence, 2 sentence explanation of that number that captures my attention, I'll probably read the rest of the deck.
Nice. Prioritize numbers right in the beginning. So just talking about numbers, what are 2 or 3 numbers that, like key metrics as founders who are building startups and successful business that we should be focusing on?
It's not really the numbers, it's the growth, right? So what is the right percentage of growth of the company? It depends on your series, your stage, your industry, how much money you've raised, how many people you have. What is really interesting is the rate of growth of the rate of growth. That derivative of your growth is what tells me that you are getting better at learning. You are getting better at learning faster. And you can compound that over time. If your rate of growth stays the same and you're not compounding and you're not getting faster at getting faster, somebody else is.
Can you just go slightly deeper on that, just in terms of, give us an example or a story where the thinking and the conversation that goes behind that. So let's say you've invested in a startup, and with the startup, have you set expectations that internally you have certain benchmarks that you should be growing this way? What
as a firm metric, or as a personal philosophy?
Both.
As a firm metric, we don't give our startups benchmarks and say, you're green if you do this, you're orange if you do that, you're red if you do that. We give our startups capital, we give them strategic advice. We have a framework, we call the partner framework, which we've invented. That is a value creation framework that is intense. And it helps startups go from Series A to Series B. It helps them think through their governance, their processes. It helps them partner with the likes of LinkedIn and AWS. It helps them recruit. It's a very structured program that we have to make sure that everyone's on point and able to execute well. And if they're not, we're able to identify that and come in and support if they want, of course. But there's no, here are the metrics you need to be a good startup. right? We are very aware and cognizant of market dynamics and competition. We're very cognizant of recruiting challenges and capital challenges and the need to sometimes pivot. So we're all operators. We understand how that works. I think on a personal philosophy level, it's important to learn. It's important to learn fast. It's important to capture that learning and integrate it so that then you can learn faster. And that goes back to you need to get better at getting better.
Okay, so let's take a small pause here for Mustafa and Grapple. We're gonna do. So I've seen this person. I forgot the name. I should really credit them. They're on Instagram and they do these 1 minute pitches. So Mustafa's going to do a really quick 1 minute pitch. If Mustafa's here, there he is. This light is really bright, so I can't see your face. You look like odd right now. So Mustafa's going to do 1 minute pitch. Noor has a checkbook. No, I'm just kidding. But Noor, if you could just share some feedback on how to improve that pitch. Just a really quick, informal 1 minute. Okay.
Okay.
Let's dive in. Hello, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Rumble. My name is Mustafa, and we are on a mission to change how businesses communicate with their customers. There's 300 million businesses around the world that are using the current email and phone to communicate with their customers. However, only 10 million around the globe are using omni channels. And the problem is the complexity of integrating multiple or 100 of APIs. So we are building a no-code infrastructure that enables businesses to connect any channel and any AI model and do a two-way conversational or an AI conversation with their customers, whether they are doing sales, marketing, or customer support. We started 2 years ago. In first year we have done 5 billion messages. We are on our way to hit 10 times more this year. We have done $500,000 per month, and hopefully we'll reach 1 million. Hopefully, by integrating more and more features. That's it.
Was that 1 minute?
Thanks, Mustafa. Yeah, the next time I need a bell or something. So it was roughly a 1 minute. So yeah, after you.
Okay, so I love that you have the numbers because now I know there's 300 million, there's 10 million. I'm trying to remember what those numbers were, but it was impressive. And I like that you share your revenue numbers, not just your messages, because when you were sharing the number of messages that you had sent, all I could think was, and I don't know if that's $5,000 or $500,000, right? So that quantification is great. I know when you started, I don't know how big your team is. I don't know if your tech is in-house or outsourced. It's two very important things. So I'm assuming it's in-house with saying we are built in tech. What I don't know is why this matters. So for me, that's a great pitch that I would just be like, okay, great, let's take a look because we could make a lot of money. Wonderful. That's kind of the job. But I'm not sitting here saying, oh my God, this is awesome. Not only do I want to learn more, I want to give your solution to every single business in our portfolio, right? Because they're going to improve. And the reason I don't know that is because you haven't told me. So you've told me that businesses have this challenge communicating with the many customers across the different platforms. You haven't told me how you improve the business. Yes, it's simpler. Does that mean it's more efficient? Does that mean they reach more people? Does that mean they save time? They cut headcount? So why does this matter to the business? I wanted to know that in the first 10 or 15 seconds. So you're like, this is what we do. And I'm like, okay, why does this matter to a business? But if I'm trying to figure out why this matters to the business, I'm not listening to you. So I know I want to listen because he's going to ask me for feedback. But ultimately, within the first 20 seconds, what is the value proposition? The solution is clear. The value proposition to the business that makes me go from, yes, we could make a lot of money, we should do diligence, all the way to, wait, every business needs to use this. We want to invest right now, was missing. Everything else was great.
Mustafa's a strong guy. So Shark Tank conclusion?
What conclusion is finished?
No. And actually, I wasn't planning this, but why not? Anyone else want to do a 60-second bit? Hopefully, this hasn't put you off. But anyone else want to do a quick 60-second pitch? Okay, next one. Honestly,
I think they're nervous now that I've given actual
yeah,
feedback.
I feel like they should have.
And the next time I'll just say nice things.
Yeah.
Sweid. Sweid.
Okay. So, I think we're still trying to figure out what to do with the swimming pool, right? Okay, so let's go. I think next time, part 2, we'll have 2 pitches, if we have a part 2. So just coming back to a few more questions, and then, by the way, we're going to open up for questions from the audience. So, there'll be 10-15 minutes, so please prepare your questions. So, Noor, you. Okay, so Noor, you talk about investing in purpose-driven founders. So can you just talk a bit more about that? What are you looking for? What's that?
So purpose is mission, right? So mission-driven founders. So founders on their path to solve a problem. We like that problem to be a very large, audacious problem. We prefer it to be in emerging markets. We usually like it to be in our markets, so that would be Middle East and Africa. The reason we like that is because our markets are huge, right? But they're not huge in the typical enterprise software, AI adoption of that kind of technology very quickly, because we have hundreds, if not thousands, of multinationals. They're huge in the sense that we have a young demographic and a lot of people, right, that need many, many things. They need financial solutions. They need healthcare. They need, education. I could keep going. We need to manufacture things as economies. So our largest asset is our young demographic. Half the population is under the age of 30. It doesn't matter which country you look at, slice it, dice it, there's no funny maths, right? So if half your population is under the age of 30, you have the youngest population in the world. It's a massive asset. Very, very fast digital penetration of anything you offer. When you offer fintech, you're not trying to replace the banks with an incrementally better solution. You are providing a solution to a massive problem, which is there is no financial inclusion. When you're providing health tech, you're not trying to replace the hospitals or reduce hospital waiting time in the ER from an hour and a half to an hour and 15 minutes. Yes, that's very, very great, but you're simply trying to provide access to healthcare, and so on and so forth. So the very large problems are the ones that are there because, one, our population grew so fast so recently, and infrastructure, number 2, has been unable to keep up and was never there. So our founders are able to leapfrog. They're able to not have industry incumbents standing in their way, telling them, we already do this, we've been doing this a certain way for 30 years, this is how we've always done banking, this is how we've always done healthcare, this is how we've always done manufacturing. No, we haven't, because those industries are not sufficient. And therefore, when technology comes in, you're solving a real problem. You're not just trying to improve the problem by 10 or 20%. And we are in a part of the world that sees that. The regulators and the leadership here is very tech forward, same in our neighboring countries, same across Africa. They were the first to say, you know what, we are unbanked, let's build neobanks. So as you start to think about that, when we talk to founders, yes, it's very interesting to think how we can optimize organizations, and we like B2B, and we will also do that. But we love founders that are out there to solve problems that affect hundreds of millions of lives using the world's best technology today.
Thank you. Brilliant answer. So if I just dissect some of that, so earlier you talked about solving problems, and then the way I've just kind of understood what you've said.
What are you doing?
Speak freely. Speak freely.
Anyone solve this problem? Oh, here we go. Okay. So,
It's fine when I
is it my badge? Is it my in5 tech jokes? That I know. Okay, this is coming. All right, so let's. I might have to shout out afterwards. So, if we just there, this is really awkward. Can you guys hear me? If I just shout like this, yeah. All right. So, sorry, your ears gonna hurt by the end of it. So, if we look at solving problems and then purpose-driven, so is it almost like another subcategory that makes the founder, makes the startup, attractive to invest in? Because sometimes there's an actual problem that they're solving, but it might be a first world problem that they're solving.
And we'll still invest to make Mike's magically work. So we'll still invest in companies that take a look at how we optimize enterprise, right? And some of them look like first world solutions that are actually huge. So when we invested in Imensa, a great concept. You could think, 3D printing, first world solution, all very fancy, right? Which, at face value, one could take it that way. But if you stop and think about what do they do and how do they do it, and they effectively replace the way that oil and gas companies, or they're changing the way that oil and gas companies keep spare parts. So to go a little bit in depth, an average oil and now this one stopped working. Jason. So,
Hello, try this.
So, now it's not working.
Maybe we circle?
That's enough. Okay. So your average, oh god. Okay, so can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
So on average, an oil and gas company has anywhere between $500 million and $2 billion sitting in spare parts and maintenance. Right? We found the fourth mic? Okay. And these spare parts, each year, about 30% or so get thrown away for HSE reasons, health and safety reasons. Ultimately, these spare parts have been produced using commodities, shipped across the world, impacting the environment, creating costs, sit in a warehouse, draining the working capital of the oil and gas companies. Ultimately, to be thrown away to a black market, inevitably, will be expired and replaced. So there is no logical way in which this is the best way to do this. But back to incumbents, this is the way it's been done for many, many, many years everywhere. So here in Dubai, we had a company that decided we're going to disrupt this. We're going to use 3D printing and additive manufacturing to think through supply chain. There's massive supply chain disruption going on everywhere in the world. Is that one working? So there's a lot of supply chain disruption going on. But adoption of a new solution in such an industry, you face so many incumbents. Everyone's like, no, why would you take the risk? Who's going to put their job on the line to use a new technology? To your point, it's a first world problem. However, these guys came in and said, we can create a 3D blueprint for each spare part for a certain amount of money. And then we can maintain a digital warehouse. And any time that any of their clients, the very large oil companies, need something, we can manufacture it locally using additive manufacturing to the same quality standard as the original. It takes somewhere in the world where you don't already have onshore manufacturing or nearshore to take that bet. Now this company has over $12 million in revenue, a couple million in EBITDA. They've expanded into Europe. Some of the biggest names in oil and gas globally, not regionally, are their clients. And they've completely disrupted this. And now people know this is very possible. It's only going to continue scaling. So in the beginning, what at first glance looks like, 3D printing, fancy tech, first world problem. In reality, you're going to be replacing billions and billions of these spare parts, saving the environment. You're going to be not using these commodities. You're releasing working capital and the billions for these companies, all from a company based out here that said, I want to solve a real problem. this makes no sense. That looks like a fancy problem, but it's actually a real problem deep down.
So it's really going deeper and thinking broader around that problem and the use cases and regions. And, yeah. Wow.
It's one of many. I mean, the founders in this part of the world really do think differently than just, and they think, again, this was not an incremental solution. This was a game-changing solution.
I think there's something there for all of us as startups in in5 and beyond, is thinking, it's making me think actually in different directions, going, here's who we solve today in this region, or, as we said, first world problems, but really going beyond that into what you were just talking about. So to flip the script slightly, and then we're going to open out for questions. Hopefully this mic is going to stay with me. Otherwise, we're going to have to get into a nice, cozy circle. So, Noor, your social media. Is there anyone here who's helping you manage your social media, or is it
Maria, Dia, and Tri-Fit team in the back.
Where's Maria? Dia's over here, and Maria's
over here.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so shout out to you guys, because you've done a great job. So, I'm a big believer in social media, and the founder being the person that's driving the marketing and the growth being the person in front. It definitely helps from a customer acquisition point of view. It's a great low cost per acquisition channel. What's your thinking behind it? And then together, feel free to get involved. What's the strategy behind it that the founders here can learn and implement? Are you going to say I'm forced into it?
No, part one is I was forced into it. Part two is our strategy so far has been, let's try and see what happens. and I think that's the real truth, is we didn't start this because anybody woke up one day and said, oh, how cool would it be to get on Instagram? Yeah. I've never had any social media in my life. Not Facebook, not Insta, not... LinkedIn was the only channel by which we shared the thoughts and our research. And I'm not a proponent of social media in general at large. And I attribute part of that to having teenagers at home. Right. And I believe that children will do as you do, not as you say. And if that's my stance in parenting, and I didn't see the added value of social media to my life, and I wanted my children to do as I did, not as I said, then I wasn't going to get on social media. And then last summer, I was invited to do Shark Tank, which we filmed in October. And I'm not a very media person unless it's about global ventures or the portfolio. And so I was very reluctant because it's just not what I've done historically. And my middle child, a 13-year-old boy, says to me, Mom, you finally get to be cool and you're saying no? So out of pure vanity and desire to be a cool mom, I was like, you know what? Fine. I'll take you up on the challenge. It's in Arabic, which I speak with I've been told on social media, not great grammar. But hey, let's do Shark Tank. And in doing Shark Tank, I discovered the lack of entrepreneurship and venture and information there was in the Arabic language in this part of the world. And so I questioned the team. So I went and aired. We got great feedback on Shark Tank. And I said, where's the rest of this? And so in January, we did this exercise where we said, how does your average American know about venture, seed investing, startup plan? And your average Arab doesn't. And so we went back and we looked at what Mark Andreessen had done on Twitter. And then what the others had done on Twitter 12, 13 years ago, back in 2012, when they launched their profiles and they started talking about seed investing and venture investing and what is Series A and, what's really entrepreneurship and how do you start a company and what's a term sheet, all these things. So we got ChatGPT to do a great summary of all of the venture questions back then. and said, hey, let's see if we do our version of Twitter, which happens to be Instagram and TikTok, and answer these same kind of questions and see if this resonates with people and if we can be helpful to founders. If they're really thinking and there's no real content in them for them in their language. And we said, let's try this for 3 or 4 months and kind of see what happens. And that's the real intention. So there was no strategy except let's talk to founders and explain to them what VC is, what a term sheet is, what Series A is, what seed investing is. You know, we posted Porter's 5 Forces recently because people would DM and say, I'm starting a company. How do I think about this? That can't be the only person wondering that. A lot of these people are very intelligent. They're doctors, they're engineers. They're just not, they don't have the business background. So we're like, great, let's put this out there. And so once we started doing it in Arabic, the team was like, let's also do it in English since you're doing it in Arabic anyway. So we started doing it in English. And I think that it's resonating. People want to have the conversation. It's not even about the content we're putting out there. It's about the conversation that's currently being had in the community and building that community and that ecosystem. You know, especially like here in in5, I remember when this place first opened, the objective was to build the community. And this is an extension of that same community.
Yeah, I love that. Why did you choose Instagram?
We didn't, we chose TikTok, but Instagram seems to have done better. So, like I said, we really didn't have a strategy. It was, what's everyone on? Everyone's on Instagram and TikTok. I wasn't on anything except LinkedIn. So I looked at the team and I was like, what do we do? And they're like, both. I'm like, great, let's do both. So it was really that, let's see what happens. This was very much an experiment to see if there's a need.
Yeah.
Because if there's no need, then we can find something else to do with our time. But if there is a need, which it seems, then it's our greatest pleasure and honor to be contributing to the community.
Love that. And, as a business, if you're on Instagram, the end outcome is driving lead sales, etc. So from a global VC, there's a community angle, which you just talked about. Did you end up getting more pitches?
We have gotten so many more pitches.
You must have. 23,000 followers?
On the English and 70,000 on the Arabic.
Wow.
And zero paid. And this is just all organic, people wanting to learn. The Arabic is what's fascinating, and I think what just drives me personally to say we need to do more, because there's just so much engagement on the Arabic.
Yeah, and it's such a simple content strategy. You get questions on ChatGPT did initially, then you get questions and then you go, let me create those answers and put it out there. Is that essentially...
No, we did a fun session this morning for 2 hours where we sat down scratching our heads on, hey, what are people wondering?
Okay.
Right? What are founders wondering? We actually sit down and we brainstorm a lot about what are founders wondering. They're probably wondering this. All right, how would you phrase that? What would you ask? What would you, right? And with the founders that have come in over the last few weeks, what are they worried about right now? What do they want to know? And then you have the DMs and the inbounds. So we answer comments, in mini lecture format and in edutainment space. And we'll respond to the DMs in video sometimes, especially if we have more than 5 or 6 people asking the same question. Then clearly there's a lack of, a lack of market depth of knowledge in the language in that space. So, but it's really, the objective is to engage, inform, educate, and help founders build their businesses in a way where they can raise funding and be successful.
And so should every content strategy follow that, to inform and educate. And if you're ever short of questions, I'm sure in5 Tech, if you sent a survey to us, we can give you really specific questions, and then Noor will be looking forward to your answers.
Send us questions.
Honestly.
You'll make Deanne Maria's job much easier.
Yeah, honestly, the audience is here. So, thank you. So we've got through the first part. I hope there's some questions around here for as long as this mic continues. I've got another mic that we can share around. And if not, in the meantime, I will pass it over here. If we have another mic, let's get another mic.
Thank you. It's not a question, it's more of a statement that I don't know, an intervention, I would say. My name is Nizad. I'm a startup with in5. And I do follow you on social media as a part of my appreciation to what you do. So thank you.
Thank you.
The second point I want to say is what you just said now was kind of an affirmative to most of the startup of what we are doing is in the correct direction and the correct way. You mentioned something about technology and the use of technology to resolve an issue. In our perspective, sometimes we look at it as a way to connect different attributes that gives more value to the consumer in terms of what the value proposition he looks after. And I think you were looking at it, and it's good for us to understand when you go into VC that you want to see these numbers, you want to see that there's a problem to crack. We look at it from a different way. Because as you said it from the beginning, the success of any startup is you become passionate for what you do and you believe in it. And you are more resilient to the idea of how you're going to grow it and so on, because being resilient is about being agile and adapting to the challenges that's around you. So it gives us an idea of when we want to talk to ABC, what are the things that you look after, because when we pitch, you are our audience, not the consumer. So great, thank you for that. So I will understand next time I talk to you what are the numbers I want to put on, you know? Yeah, that's maybe us summarizing the stuff. If there's anything, thank you.
Thank you for that. And, I think the mics are taking turns. No.
Mine's working.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes, I think there's several things. That go into it. Right. For us, there's numbers, or for me, there's numbers. There's passion. There's a problem you're solving. There's why you're the right person to solve it. But I think at the end of the day, I think what's interesting is that founders often forget that VCs also fundraise. Right. So when we're fundraising, we're talking to investors, and we're selling the stories of the region that may or may not be. Right. Because it's where we intend to find founders that are looking for this, that are focused on that. And then we hold every year a meeting between our founders and our investors. And our investors get to see if we're actually investing in the kinds of companies that we said we would be investing in. So sometimes I am, loving a company, really impressed with the founder and so on, but it doesn't meet our investment mandate. Right. And unfortunately, that the most we can do is work with that founder to make the right introductions to the other investors to whom it does meet the investment mandate. So I think founders also need to keep that in mind when the VCs sometimes say, "Love it, this is fantastic. I still can't invest." It's part of the job.
Should work. Yeah. Hi, Noor. I'm Vicky. Working now? Yeah. Okay. So my question is more around see there are a lot of tech founders who come in this tech product and kind of come to raise at least at conversations. I've myself in angel invested about 5 as a non-techie, I've been a revenue guy all my life and all my career, and now starting a company which is more solutions and not building a tech, but I'm building a distribution. How, from a VC angle, how would you look at a non-tech company, which is eventually actually building a marketplace / distribution of tech companies? Would you look at it differently, or would your metrics change, or would just scale matter, markets matter? How would you look at it?
All of the above matter. And I think, it's the scale, the market, the business model, all of it. It's the same as investing in a tech company. The big question that VCs often, believe in tech versus non-tech to think about is, for every dollar we invest, how many dollars of revenue are you generating? And in tech, that number can go up to 5, 10, 15. And non-tech, it often stagnates at 1 or 2. Now, if that's not the case, then you are priced differently and so on. And that's the difference, for example, between a software company and a SaaS company, right? So a software company will grow with a sales force and so on. A SaaS company will grow their ARRs a bit differently, especially if you can download the SaaS yourself and implement it. You don't need an implementation team. And so these are the small differences, that it's not just about tech or non-tech. It's about the scalability of the business model and the multiple of, I give you $1, how many dollars are you generating with that?
Any other questions?
I'll switch out the slide on that mic.
Hi. I'm back. So my name is Yahya. in5 startup. We started, I think, 2 months ago. Still very early for us, but we're at a stage where we need to put pricing. And I think, I'm not sure how many of us been through this before, but it's a pretty challenging thing to do, especially when you want to put the price tag to that on the first year. It's a SaaS product. Since you just mentioned SaaS, integration can be done or cannot be done. So depending on how we want to move forward to it. So what advice would you give to a startup that early in terms of pricing?
So I'm not a pricing expert. I'll caveat. I'll share what I've seen works and what some of the pitfalls are. It works to undercut your competition if your competition's IBM and Oracle, and that's easy to do. They're pricing at $5,000. You're pricing at much lower than that. That's a good thing. If you're pricing much lower than that at $50 versus their $5,000, then it's likely you're not going to be taken seriously, and people will question the quality of what you're providing. If you're pricing at $1,000 or $500, you'll probably be taken seriously enough for people to try. There's little to lose, right? Except switching costs, which I assume are not that high. The problem with that we've seen is it's really hard to then get even up to the 2,000 or 3,000. And the challenge isn't in as much the market as the founder mindset. The founder fear that creeps in that if I make my product twice as expensive, I will lose customers, is very high. And sometimes it's hard to step back because of the fear of that lost revenue and realize, hey, at $2,000, I'm still much cheaper than that $5,000 option, although I'm double the $1,000 price point I had originally started at. And sometimes that's where founders get stuck, is within their own echo chamber and within their own fear, rather than being able to take a step back and take a look at the corporate solution they're providing and the corporate budgets.
We're devaluing ourselves, technically.
We devalue ourselves as founders, and more than, yes. And you can get away with a lot more, and you will sell much more because you're more expensive, because then you're seen as a higher quality product.
One or two more questions? Maria? No, we got a few more. You guys want to pitch here? Anyone? I feel like some of these turned into pitch.
Hi, I'm Miriam. I'm also an in5 startup. We are tech. My question is, in those 63 companies you said you invested in, how many approached you through a cold approach, and how many of those were referrals or personal introduction, warm introduction? Thank you.
You're welcome. I would say, I don't know the numbers, but probably 62 out of the 63 were introductions. And one of the things that we try to do is we try to be accessible, right, to founders, to investors. When I was younger and LinkedIn first came to be, someone once said at a conference that most of us have someone in common, and if the founder or the person trying to reach out doesn't take the time or can't be bothered to figure out who that is, then it probably isn't that important for them to meet me anyway. Right. And I would say that extends to the entire Global Ventures team. So now we have once every month we try and we do an open office. And people are welcome to pass by to meet. And it's a low ask because founders can bring other founders. LPs can bring founders or send founders without them feeling like they're asking for a favor. Because we've found that the best opportunities we've seen come from our LPs and our founders, right? Both of which want to send us great ideas and great people. But we try to be accessible. There are 6 partners in the firm. We're 24 people in the firm. You probably have someone in common with at least one of them. The next open office is next Friday from 5 till 7. It's literally we just open our office and have some drinks and snacks, and the community can pass by and mingle.
Well, you should somehow get the details. Yeah, that's right.
Don't talk about
Yeah, you just share the email also. But that would be quite nice. So let's go over here. And
hi everybody. My name is Khalid Jawasini. I'm Syrian and Canadian, and I came back to UAE a few years back in the pandemic. I just wanted to emphasize on one point. You said the pitch, if it is one line and the graphic, like an Excel sheet or something showing the growth. But nowadays, what about if the startup is going into different senses, like emotional or personal, or maybe in the perfume business? So instead of doing the pitch in 1 minute, I brought you one. This is the first AI made by us, perfume made by AI. So we make the AI smell now like a virtual nose. It will your even daughters, in UK, the persona of the perfumes. They bring their kids when they are 15 to Gorlan to build their persona. While in the Middle East, we stick with our parents' perfume, our friends' perfume. So there's no discovery platform. So it took us time, but usually discovery platforms make money after, and usually it's guaranteed since the validation of our not competitor, but the market validation in US is they raised 30 million with Y Combinator, and they have 700,000 subscribers. So it's a subscription-based model, but this is a niche, only 500 in the world. And we made the AI to help us to stay about 30 days on clothes. If you're not annoyed, if you love perfumes, and it has very little mood, and it's in a celebrity name, and I make it me and her, and I'll leave it there for you. This is the pitch.
Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to trying that. So are you too.
Thank you.
Thank you. The pitch was great. I can think of so many things to do with this. I think there's a lot of partnerships that can be done as well.
So just one more question at the back. Okay.
Hello, pleasure meeting you at this nice evening today with everybody. My name is Ahmed. I'm senior software engineer. I'm planning to open my startup soon. So I want to know what's the common pitfalls everybody do that is not knowing about business side, because I'm a senior software engineer, so I'm not into deep into business. So what's the common mistake everybody do?
I think there's about 20. I think the one that we see most frequently when companies are first starting is they focus so much on the product that they delay going to market. And most things I find you're better off trying, adjusting, getting a customer, trying again, working with the customer to adjust, and waiting until something is perfect is too late. And it's always perfect is the enemy of done, right? So it's, or good, or both. So you stop and you think and you're like, wait, let me just get something good enough, try it, adjust, good enough. And then 1 year later, you have a great product and revenues. And it's like magic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amazing. So, I was just thinking earlier. There's a pattern here in terms of some of the questions around the pitch deck, and that I think that really captured a lot of interest, and it all started with Mustafa.
We have an Instagram post on that. What goes into a great pitch deck? And it's 5 different sections. You guys should go online and take a look. We like pulled out like, this is what a pitch deck should look like.
Yeah. Okay. So you've answered part of my question. You know what I really want? There's this phrase, why copy when you can trace? So have you got a pitch deck? I don't know if this is too cheeky for us to ask, but do you have an example pitch deck that only the people in this room can hold? If you can, that would be amazing, and then we can share that around.
I believe in sharing knowledge.
Nice.
Sharing knowledge.
Well, if you think about it, there's at least 20 clips on 4 social media just from this conversation. So I think it's a good value of trade. All right, so just want to thank a few people. I know there's people waiting for the food. So first of all, Mitali, thank you for some of the research. Really appreciate that. Thank you, in5 Tech, for accepting some of the bad jokes, but more importantly, on putting on such a great event. I think actually for startups who are down deep in the details of building businesses, it's hard. It's a roller coaster. Most of that roller coaster is at the low as opposed to the high. So events like this really help us to get outside thinking and people that are experts. And it's these insightful events. I believe you're trying to make this quarterly. So just FYI for people. So in5 team, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And then last but not least, to Noor. Just for being open, sharing your insights, and some of the things that will follow. And I'm sure there's going to be a room full of 500 people at your next Global Ventures event. So I'm sure loads of people.
I look forward to seeing you all next Friday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
There is food to the left and to your right, so feel free. Thank you so much.